Welcome to this edition of Morgan You Asked For podcast, Wednesday night, just after 9 o'clock. Huge weekend and beginning of the week for Hawkeyes and Cyclone basketball. We'll get to those topics here in just a minute, but we do want to start with welcoming Trev back after a hiatus here for a couple weeks or a week or so. I'm going to give the floor to Trevor first. He's going to talk about Daytona 500. He had a big gambling win. A little bit of NFL stuff, and then we'll in the last three quarters of the episode, we'll talk Hawkeyes and Cyclones and what their big wins this week, how that might impact the future and their March seedings / in the Big 12, Big 10 tournament and in the NCAA tournament coming up. So welcome back, Trev. Let us know what you've been doing, your Daytona information and highlights, and a little bit of NFL stuff.
Yeah, no, it's good to be back. Obviously, I had to miss one or two episodes, whatever it was. We had our sales meeting in Charlotte, North Carolina, so got to watch the Super Bowl with coworkers. That was a lot of fun. I know you already spoke on that, so really no need to recap that game at all. It's been a while now. So, yeah, this past Sunday, I had some bets on the Daytona 500. I did have Tyler Reddick at 40-1, and he snuck through there at the very end with the wreck, and that seems to be the normal factor at the end of these Daytona races. At the last lap or two, there's going to be a pile up, and as long as you've got a racer in the top 10 to 12, they can sneak through and get the win, and that's exactly what happened. Now, 40-1 is a nice win, but if you really looked at the picture that I sent you, Zach and Cody, if you saw my total amount of bets, my profit wasn't super great, but it still made for a fun inning to have all those different drivers in the race.
Oh, absolutely. That's the fun part. And, obviously we're all amateur gamblers, very amateur at that kind of stuff. It's fun to get the win. But, yeah, when you bet 10 racers or 12 racers at $10 a shot and you win $400 or $500, whatever it is, it actually doesn't come out to quite as good odds. But, the odds of you picking the winner with the higher odds, it's way more fun to have 10 people to bet on than just one person. And if they wreck 10 laps in and they're out, then you've lost all interest in the race.
Yeah, and the race did feel like a big event. I saw Dale Earnhardt Jr. had a headline. I didn't listen to the YouTube clip, but he said this Daytona felt like a bigger event than it has in quite a number of years. I know FS1 and First Things First did, I think, 2 episodes, 3-hour shows from Daytona. They had a bunch of racers on, so kind of got some more exposure for the sport. Like I said, I'm not a huge race fan, but this is the one race that I like to bet on. I doubt I bet on any more races the remainder of the race season. If I do, it'll probably be Talladega. That'll probably be my last one. But, yeah, it's pretty fun. Michael Jordan, his race team got the win. You could see how excited he was. And, yeah, it's weird because, like I said, you could have a guy in 7th place with half a lap to go, and there's probably going to be a wreck, and they just have to sneak through for you.
Yeah, so, I didn't really watch it. I saw the highlights. He was he was just right towards the front, and he didn't get caught up in it, and Chase Elliott did, and that was all she wrote, right?
Yeah, pretty much. He was kind of in that third position. I forget exactly. I have to go back and watch the highlight. I was so excited when it happened. I just heard his name and knew I had him, so it was just one of those exciting moments. That's why I like betting on it. But, yeah, I think he either went low and then went high or vice versa. Was able to get around the 2 cars around him, I think both wrecked, and then he just snuck through. I don't believe he led a lap the entire race, until that very end, and that's all that matters. Really all that matters is whoever you bet on, all your drivers, they just need to be there on that last lap somewhere. Probably,
right.
In the top 10 to 15, preferably top 10. And if you've got a few guys in there like I did, you've got a coin flip chance, kind of.
Yeah, it's fun. Like you said, we're not huge race fans, but making a bet or two and just having something to make you watch. Same thing when you bet. Golf is kind of the same way. Now we all like golf, and we'll watch golf, but it's if you bet one guy to win the whole thing, the odds of that aren't very good. But if you bet to finish top 10 or you have 12 guys to win it, things like that, it makes it way more interesting and just a way more, a little more fun for me, and I know for you as well.
Yeah, I know you're exactly right. Golf tournaments like the Masters and maybe a couple others throughout the year, I'll do that, 10 or 12 guys, and it makes for a more enjoyable weekend. And, with golf too, it's a 4-day event. So if you bet 12 guys and 8 make the cut and you've got, 3 in the top 10 with 1 day to go, depending on how many strokes they're within the lead, it makes for a fun watch, and it makes for 4 days of fun. Rather than just betting one single game where it's just a 3-hour event.
Yeah, and then you can get into the futures and, will Tiger Woods make the cut at a major? I mean, you can start doing that stuff now. Things like that, that I know us and I know Zach sometimes get in on some of that stuff.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, that's probably enough NASCAR for now. I think 5 or 6 minutes on NASCAR is that's about as much as we can do. Probably that people want to listen to. Let's move into some NFL things.
Yep.
A few dates, and then we'll talk some trade players and some free agents. The NFL Combine's coming up next week, starting on the 26th through March 1st. Those will be the on-field activities. Franchise tags started yesterday, and they go till March 3rd is the deadline. And then NFL free agency, the tampering period starts March 9th, which I know you and I always laugh at. That's a couple days before free agency really starts. But the first 2 days of free agency, I mean, there's some years in some ways that the first 2 days of free agency I almost enjoy more than the regular season itself.
Yeah. Oh, whenever midnight hits or whatever that date, and Kirk Cousins signs a 5-year, $100 million deal with Atlanta Falcons or where it doesn't matter. You can put in whatever team, but at least they're honest about it, and they have a tampering period. It's legal, and then you can't sign until that date. It's not like college football that they know it all happens. They tamper all the time. It's illegal to tamper, but no one cares.
Yeah, the NFL knew it was going on and just decided, we'll just move it a couple days ahead of schedule, and then that keeps them in the calendar even more throughout the year and throughout the offseason like we talk about. So the NFL just admitted that this goes on. It's not the end of the world, so we'll just move it up 2 days and call it the tampering period, and we'll let all our fans and all the fans of different teams enjoy, at midnight or whenever that time comes, and all of a sudden you start getting all the breaking news of all these big contracts getting signed.
Yeah, the NFL has it figured out. Everybody else just needs to copy the NFL, and college sports are getting more and more into the pro model, but they want to keep their certain calendars and stuff, and they just need to fully admit it's professional sports now. It's been professional sports for a long, long time, and they need to act accordingly. And for some reason, they're not willing to act accordingly yet. Hopefully soon.
Yeah, not yet, but I think there's enough talk that eventually they're going to get to a better spot than they are right now. I think college sports will be a lot better 3 years from now, 5 years from now, with some of the pro models and people from all the different pro leagues going to help the colleges out. I think they'll get there eventually. And just speaking of some rumors going on in the NFL, and these 2 players that we're going to talk about are going to be, they're going to be up in trade discussions all offseason and up through the draft. But we'll start with the Eagles, Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown drama. Obviously, we know that's been going on for basically about a year now. There's been a bunch more rumors coming out, though, about Jalen Hurts is not very well liked in the locker room. When that first came out, I kind of thought it was mostly just A.J. Brown. I really didn't think too much of it, but
right.
There's been a lot more stories coming out that he's really not one of the guys. He's just a little bit of a different character. So there's some tension there. Obviously, A.J. Brown's going to be a big trade topic. If I was the Eagles, I'd move him. Diva wide receivers, you can win with them. You can win a Super Bowl with them like the Eagles did, like the Chiefs did with Tyreek Hill. But short term, they're not long-term answers. They're the NBA players of the NFL. And I've heard a lot of discussions this week of you can't trade an A.J. Brown. You don't trade players like that. Yeah, you can. They ruin locker rooms. Any work environment that we've all been in teaching, Salesforce like I've been in, if you have someone that's disruptive or, in meetings, always saying inappropriate stuff or kind of interrupting, ruining the flow of meetings or the work that's going on that day, we've all seen that. And eventually that person either moves on or they're let go, right? The writing's kind of on the wall. Same thing in sports locker rooms. So Yeah, they won a Super Bowl with A.J. Brown. They got the ring, but I'd move off him now if I could.
Yeah, sometimes even though a great player will help your team win, and that, like you said, in a company setting, a educational setting, or a sports setting, they will help you be more successful. But in the long run, it's just better to move on and let them go on their way. Either, kind of, encourage them to move on, or just flat cut the cord and just get rid of them on your own.
That's exactly right. And the other name that's really in the news right now is Max Crosby. He actually did a podcast with Caleb Williams, and he wants to be traded. The Bears are a team that could potentially make that happen. There was a guy, Danny Parkins, who used to be in Chicago. He kind of had a mock trade offer, the Bears' first-round pick this year and DJ Moore for Max Crosby. I think that'd be a pretty good starting point. We talked about DJ Moore in that playoff game on that final route that he ran. I told you I think that's kind of tough to come back to the locker room after that. So first and DJ Moore for Max Crosby, I think would be a pretty good deal for both teams. The Raiders probably want to get a little bit more, but I think Crosby's 29, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So
that matters a lot.
It does. But if, for the Raiders, they could get Mendoza at 1. They'd get a receiver for him and DJ Moore. And then at the Bears pick at whatever, 25, I think they are.
Yeah,
they would need to go
mid-20s.
Yep, they would need to go offensive line there, and probably offensive line again with their second-round pick. So they could really transform their offense with that trade. But Max Crosby and A.J. Brown are two of the big trade names. There's going to be others, of course, but those are the headliners.
Yeah, and then just I saw where, and this happens to everybody, and all these players are signing huge contracts, and the Chiefs restructured Mahomes' contract to save a lot of cap space so he can help, so they can re-sign Kelsey if they want, so they can, just make the team as good as they can for this year, because those numbers are just unreasonable to moving forward with that huge cap number each year. Even with the cap increasing each year, it's just unattainable to have a complete team with that much of the cap going to one player.
Yeah, the quarterback contracts are getting a little bit out of the hand. As you mentioned, Mahomes restructured, which is good for them. I still believe they're maybe potentially still over the cap even after the restructure. So they've got some other moves that they have to make. Josh Allen may be another guy that looks to restructure to open up some cap room. Obviously, he's trying to get to his first Super Bowl. That way they can bring in some free agents. And, speaking of free agents, I wrote about 10 names down. Obviously, there's hundreds of free agents, but let's go through a few of these names and their positions. Quarterbacks, to me, the two big ones are Daniel Jones and Malik Willis. Daniel Jones will probably get tagged by the Indianapolis Colts, and then they'll probably work on a long-term deal because they kind of just, that trade that they made for Sauce Gardner, when Daniel Jones is still healthy, that's kind of going to be their guy. And then Malik Willis, I think Malik Willis had some good games with the Packers. That's a guy I'd look for maybe the Steelers to bring in. If I was the Steelers, I wouldn't want Rodgers back. You could win 8, 9, 10 games with Mike McCarthy and Rodgers, but that's the same thing they've been doing for 8 years now. And Steelers fans either want to find out if Howard or maybe a guy like Malik Willis can be a franchise quarterback, or bottom out, get a top 15 pick and then hopefully get their next Big Ben in next year's draft. Moving on to running backs, Kenneth Walker, the Super Bowl MVP. I don't know if you saw the parade that they had with the Seahawks GM, and he was chanting MVP. Kenneth Walker was right beside him, and Kenneth Walker was just shaking his head mad. And the GM said that Kenneth Walker was trying to negotiate a contract with him like 20 minutes ago. So he's already upset. There's a lot of rumors they think they'll let him walk. Breece Hall, the free agent, Iowa State player, and Travis Etienne. So those are kind of the three big running backs. Obviously, the Chiefs, I'm sure, would like to have one of those guys.
Yeah, it's one of the guys, radio shows I listen to out of Des Moines, they talk to a Chiefs guy, once every couple of weeks or whatever, and it's like they thought they were going to trade for him. I think they actually did give an offer, and the Jets just didn't take it. It just makes sense. He's from Wichita. He's kind of exactly what they need. He's good out of the backfield. He's not just every down, hand it to him, get it to him. He's a 3-down back. if needed. I mean, obviously you want more than one guy. But I think if you keep Pachinko, I think that's, and then him, that's it. Pachinko be your power guy, run hard, and then Hall be your, pass catcher and, just try to get out in space. Because as the big thing about him that's different than David Montgomery, which I think you might probably bring up here coming up, Montgomery's just not fast enough to run that 70-yard touchdown. He's really good getting you 5 to 10 yards, but he's not going to run for 70. Breece Hall will break it and go the distance.
Yeah, and Breece Hall would be a really nice player to have too, because then they wouldn't have to take Jeremiah Love at number 9 or running back in like the first 3 or 4 rounds. They could maybe save it for like a 6th or 7th round pick to maybe get a different, a different style of runner compared to Breece Hall. So signing him would be a big deal. Now that's if the Jets don't franchise tag him. So all these free agents can be franchise tagged. Wide receivers, Mike Evans, Alec Pierce, Tyreek Hill, and George Pickens. Obviously, George Pickens is probably going to get tagged. And then it just depends if the Cowboys trade him or keep him. And a few more players, tight ends, Kyle Pitts and Travis Kelce. We'll see if Travis Kelce comes back to the Chiefs on a cheap deal.
Is there any chance that he comes back not with the Chiefs? If he comes back for the Chiefs, very understandable. But him going and playing for somebody else would be very weird to me.
It'd be weird, but there's also the pride. I mean, he's made a lot of money, but if the Chiefs try to offer him a lowball contract, it may take him off. Like, these guys are prideful. And once you start making a certain amount of money, it's tough to go lower, even if you are rich. Most people don't like to do that. So I would say it's unlikely, but not impossible, of course.
Yeah, it's not actually about the money, but it's just the number. You were making $20 million a year. Now all of a sudden you don't want to make 10. I mean, it's just the reality of it. It's not. It's just the one instead of the two that they don't want. Yep,
no, that's right. And then the last 2 players, Tyler Linderbaum, of course, a former Hawkeye. Yep. We'll see if the Ravens sign him or if he ends up potentially with the New York Giants. Giants have a decent center, but if he hits the free agent market, he'll be highly regarded. The Raiders may try to go after him or something. And then Trey Hendrickson, the edge rusher for the Cincinnati Bengals, his time is most likely over there with the Bengals unless they franchise tag him. So those are just 10 or 12 big names for free agents. Obviously, like I said, there's hundreds more, and once we get to that free agent signing period, you'll start seeing a lot more of those guys get signed.
I do understand that. All right, we will continue our NFL talk each week here. Obviously, next week we'll be right into Combine. Trev that's his baby, and then we'll really start getting into mock draft time. Free agents will hit. The NFL never stops, so we'll always talk about that. But let's move to basketball, where it has been a huge week here in Iowa for our 2 basketball teams. We're going to start with the Hawkeyes because it's the most recent. They won last night against number 9 Nebraska after a very disappointing 2-game stretch, loss at Maryland, and then not so much that they lost to Purdue at home, it's how they lost. It was never close. They were never in it, and just Purdue made them look excuse me. Purdue just made them look not like a team that belonged with them. And then Purdue goes on the road and gets spanked by Michigan. Iowa's a better team than they showed against Purdue, and they showed that last night against Nebraska. Nebraska's number 9. I think they only have 3 losses now. Maybe that was their 4th. I'd have to look for sure. I can't remember what. It's one of those. I don't know when I looked at the record. I know they had 3 losses. I just don't remember if it was before or after the game. And Bennett Sturtz controls a game better than any point guard I've seen in a long, long time. And when he can control it, it was an ugly basketball game. I think McCollum even said, set the offensive basketball back 30 years, but contained Price Sanford, who got booed and everything. And then, after we talk here a few minutes, then we'll talk about the court storm and then the Hoiberg situation during the court storm. But Trev, were you able to watch the game last night? Your thoughts the last week or so? I know basketball is not your number one thing, but how much you've been paying attention to the Hawkeyes, and were you able to watch the game last night?
I was able to watch a good chunk of it. I watched the beginning, had to miss some in the middle, and then I saw the last 5 minutes. Obviously, I believe it was Iowa's first win versus a ranked opponent since 2024. So it's been a little bit of a while.
Yeah, 2 years to the day.
Yeah, we'll get into the court storming with that. And then, I thought Iowa, you're right, Bennett Sturts controls the game really well. He's very confident with the basketball. He doesn't mind waiting until the final 2 or 3 seconds are left on the shot clock. I mean, there's no panic with him. He's just very calm, and that's part of the offense that they run at times, of course. And I thought rebounding was really good the last couple of minutes for Iowa. Iowa got some really big rebounds and then hit some big time free throws to kind of steal that game, because Nebraska did make a couple shots there at the end to keep giving themselves chances, and Iowa did a good job with free throws, which typically when you're in a tight game, free throws are always one of those things you have to pay attention to in a tight one.
Yeah, I believe they were 17 of 18, which we're going to talk about the Cyclones here next. They were 11 of 22 in their game. So just to contrast there. Yeah, Iowa and Maniau in particular, 2 huge offensive rebounds and keeping the ball alive. I think they had a 3-point lead or whatever and just kept the ball away from Nebraska and just made them play defense. And I think at the end of that double offensive rebound, I think Sturts was able to make a shot. So it's just, 1, able to take a minute and a half off the clock, and then 2, the more Sturts has the ball in his hands, more than likely things are going to go well for the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, the more opportunities you give Sturts, typically he's going to make the right decision, make the right shot, whatever it is. So, yeah, those were very valuable rebounds that Iowa got there on offensively. So it was a great win for him. Like I said, I didn't watch the whole game, but I think the next thing we can get into is the court storm and then the camera incident and I guess all the people freaking out about it. But I'll kind of let you go on that a little bit, what you've heard. I saw the Big Ten or Iowa put out a statement and, all this different stuff.
Yeah, and all that stuff's going to come out. Nebraska's going to give a statement here. Fred's going to apologize. I mean, overall, let's go to the court storm first. First win against a ranked team in 2 years. The fan base in general has not been excited for a while, and they've got a pretty good team. They're not a great team, but they're pretty good. I believe they're in the tournament now, especially with that win. I don't think, obviously if you didn't win another game throughout, you probably aren't in, but I don't think that will happen. Pretty much a guarantee to get in. Now you're just playing for what seed you're trying to get. And speaking of that, I did put on Twitter, on our Twitter feed, Morgan asked for podcast Twitter, a Cyclone and a Hawkeye, like what seed for the Hawkeyes do you think they're going to get? And then for Iowa State, where do they need to go? Final 4 bust. Their ceiling's the Elite 8, Sweet 16, max, I think is what I put. And then the last is early exit, like last year. So if you are inclined and like Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, go on there to our feed there and vote in those polls. It's always kind of fun to see who does what and everything there. But with the court storm, I love it when it's organic. It wasn't planned. I mean, I wouldn't – it's a top 10 team. You haven't had a lot to celebrate in several years as Hawkeye fans. It's great. The court storms are awesome, just in general. Field storms are awesome. I love them. But you get knuckleheads out there like the fan that just went right into Hoiberg's face and pointed a camera right in his face. You and I probably would have done the same thing, thrown swung and hit the phone out of his hand and said, get away from me or whatever. Unfortunately, Hoiberg's a prominent figure. He's a head coach. He's making millions of dollars. It's just a bad look. Now, Hoiberg is known to be super cool, calm, and collective. So I think that is helping him and giving him a huge benefit of the doubt. If this would have been exact opposite, let's just say the Hawkeyes were number 9 last year and Nebraska was Iowa, and it was actually switched, and a Nebraska fan ran up to Fran, and he slapped a phone out of the kid's hand, holy smokes, it would be on front page of ESPN. It'd be on the front page of every sports news outlet there is. It might let off Sports Center because of Fran's history. So I think Fred individually will get the benefit of the doubt because of his history and character and temperament going forward. Fran would not have got that benefit of the doubt. So I don't think he's going to get fined. I don't think he's going to get suspended by the Big Ten. I just don't think that. I don't think it was that big a deal, I guess, in my true opinion.
Yeah, I don't think it was that big of a deal either. First of all, starting with the court storm, that's what college sports is all about. You know, you're only there for 4 or 5 years, whatever your time is in college. Like you said, Iowa hasn't had one of these in quite some time. So court storms, field storms, those are always fun. You do them when you're in college. And then, you know, once you get out of college and become an adult, then you stay in the stands and you just watch from afar. So
you stay in the stands and let the initial surge go. And then like at Iowa State football, you know, I don't go to a lot of basketball games. You let the chaos happen, and then you go down on the field and walk around if you want.
Yeah, you don't want to go down and get trampled and be around all those people, especially once you start getting older. But, you know, the court storms are awesome and field storms. That's what make college sports great. And, yeah, if I was Fran, I probably would have done the same thing. I don't blame him at all. Like you said, he's got a good history of being calm. So I don't think anything's going to come of it. If they give him a small fine, whatever. I mean, that should be the max, in my opinion. Should be, if they do anything, it should be like a small fine. They should definitely not suspend him or anything. And I don't think that they will. So, like you said, he's got a good history. Don't really blame him. It's an emotional game. You know, he coached at Iowa State too. So coming to Carver Hawkeye, he's been there plenty of times. And, you know, whether he was at Iowa State or Nebraska, it's a rivalry game. So those are tough. And, you know, when you got someone coming up like that, you don't know, you know, who knows what they could have in, you know, today's environment that we live in. It's a phone or who knows what it could be. So I don't blame him for smacking the phone out of the way. I really didn't think it was that big of a deal.
No, I agree. All right. Let's move on to kind of my next thought here, and I touched on it with the poll on Twitter or X. What seed do you think the Hawkeyes are going to get? And this is obviously we have no idea what's going to happen, but what, as of today, and what you think will happen going forward, what seed do you think they will get come Selection Sunday?
Well, first off, I didn't see your Twitter poll because I haven't been on Twitter since 2017. I don't think so. If you tagged me in it, I didn't see. When I looked yesterday, or I looked for an updated one today, it still has Iowa around that 8-9 spot, which we talked about before. That's tough because if you win, you're going to be playing the 1 seed, and that's just going to be a tough ask for Iowa to get to a Sweet 16. But they've got a tough stretch going down. The remaining schedule too. They're at Wisconsin on Sunday, ranked 24th in the nation. If they could get that win, that'd be a big one on the road. Back-to-back big ranked wins for Iowa. It'd be nice to see them get out of that 8-9 spot, but it feels like they're stuck there right now. So I'd like to see them get out of that, obviously out of that 8-9 and get to a different seed, of course.
Right, and most bracketologists have them in the 8-9 game right now. A couple that I've seen is then you go play Duke in the second round. That you don't want that. I think Duke's really good. I think that, you know, if it goes as projected at maybe, you know, like on paper as I talk about it, you know, you win the ones you're supposed to win, you lose the ones you're supposed to lose, they're going to be in that 8-9 game. I think the highest they could probably get is up to a 6 if they would string a couple of these, you know, if you would go beat Nebraska on the road, you win the Penn State and Ohio State and Wisconsin game. I think you have those 3. So there's 4 more wins. And then you lose to Michigan, but you lose very close. And then you win a game or 2 in the Big Ten tournament, just depending on how it works out with double seeds and everything. Everybody's in the tournament this year, but there's like there's a lot of different tiers. There's a no buys, 1 buy, 2 buy, 3 buy. I mean, there's a whole bunch of buys able to get. Obviously, they're not going to be in the top 1 to get 3 or 4 buys there, but if you can win a game or 2 in the tournament, I think you could get to a 6. I think that's probably your max right now. But if you would lose one, you know, maybe you lose at Wisconsin or at I can't remember if Ohio State's at home or not, but you lose one of those 2. I don't think you can lose to Penn State and help your cause at all. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to fall to that 10 seed and play that 7-10 game. It's not the worst thing. But I do think right now they're in that 8-9 game.
Yeah, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. If you can get to that 6-7, that's a lot better, or even fall to that 10-11. That's just it gives you a better chance to get to that Sweet 16, which they haven't been to in forever, rather than playing a number 1 seed, whoever that is, in the second round, because that's just going to be a tough ask, obviously.
Yeah, and then let's just talk a little bit of Big Ten, kind of big picture, and we're going to talk about this in the Big 12. But Tang got fired in the Big 12. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. But UCLA's coach Mick Cronin is doing the same thing that Jerome Tang did. Did you see this last night?
I saw the video and people discussing it today.
Yeah, I've never seen that ever. You kick out your own player. Now, I 100% agree with getting on him, sitting him on the bench, because it's uncalled for. 25-point game, going up for a dunk. There's no place for that. If it's a 2-point ball game, you're going up and trying to block it, and you're trying to make him earn it from the free throw line. That is a different story. But that game was over, and so what he was doing is correct. But how he did it and the manner that he did it, you just don't see, and it's super weird. And then, he complains all the time about the travel. He still wears the suit that's still buttoned and everything. He's just a weird cat, and it is kind of fun to watch, though. So I kind of like that. And then obviously he's going against Izzo, and he's his own weird cat, and I love him too. And he kicked out one of his former players. It's like earlier in the year that we talked about. I don't know what's going on in the Big Ten, but Michigan State's got a chance to go a long ways in the Big Ten. Michigan has a chance to win the whole thing, no doubt about it. Illinois is really, really good too. I think Nebraska is just that next step down, but I think Illinois, Michigan, and Michigan State all have a legit chance to go a long, long ways in this tournament.
Yeah, those feel like the big three of the Big Ten. Obviously, I think Purdue's ranked number 7.
Yeah, they're kind of there with Nebraska. They're that just half a step back.
Yeah, they're kind of the second tier, you would call it, of the Big Ten teams. And then of course, you've kind of got the Wisconsin, Iowa, Ohio State bunched into that third tier, if you want to call it, of the Big Ten. But yeah, from my understanding and looking at Ken Palm rankings, if a Big Ten team is going to play in the title or win it, it feels like Michigan, Illinois, or potentially Michigan State would be the
Yeah, I would say Illinois and Michigan are definitely the two favorites. Michigan State, you just never count out. Tom Izzo knows what he's doing, and he gets his players, always seems to be playing the best at the end of the year. And, as an Iowa State fan, Michigan State's a 3 seed and you're a 2 seed and you're playing them to get to the Elite 8. That is not what you want. I don't want to see Illinois either.
Yeah, Tom Izzo, he's been around forever. Like you said, he knows what he's doing. Ton of experience in the tournament. So, yeah, any time if you have to play Michigan State at whatever stage of the tournament, it's going to be a tough game.
All right, let's move on to Iowa State and the Big 12. Iowa State with 2 of the better atmospheres, better wins in Iowa State history this weekend. Kansas was the hottest team in college basketball. They had won 8 in a row against, number 1, number 5. They had won some 8 in a row since they beat Iowa State at Kansas previously. Obviously, was that 3 weeks ago, 3.5, 4 weeks ago. So they blow out Kansas by essentially 20. I think it ended up being 18, but it was about 20 points most of the second half. And essentially those 2 games are wiped out. Kansas beat Iowa State by 20, and then Iowa State beat Kansas by 20. So those 2 games essentially are a wash, both won at home. The more impressive one was Monday night. And it's not just the win, because they were actually a 1.5 point favorite going into that, which shocked the heck out of me. But that's how much Hilton Coliseum matters. And that's the respect that Vegas has for Iowa State. How that game went, were you able to watch that game at all, Trev?
No, I was not. But I obviously I've seen the headlines and everything, right. The 2 big wins like you spoke about. But no, I did not get to watch it. So Iowa State came out, had a 10-point lead 4 minutes into the game. It was like 15-5. Milan hit a 3 right
out of the chutes. And then Houston comes back. And then Iowa State made it. It was a game of runs. It was the first half was all offense, and the second half was all defense, is what it seemed like. And just, I will say this. Watching that game, Houston has way better players than Iowa State, in my opinion. They have some absolute studs. They have some guys that are going to make a ton of money in the NBA, and starting this June, whenever the draft is, June or July, whenever that is. There's two guys there. They're both freshmen that are going to get drafted very early, and they are going to make a lot of money. And they're post CNAC or snack or however you say it, and then Fleming, the freshman guard. He is a flat stud. They were able to just give him the ball, and he can make a play and make a shot in someone's face, three-pointer, get to the free throw line area, stop and pop. But Iowa State has the better team. And I think you kind of probably understand what I'm saying there. If you are at, and this is what could hurt Iowa State when it gets to, hopefully they get to the Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four-ish rounds. Houston can give the ball to Fleming and say, go make a play. Iowa State, if they have to do that, they're going to give the ball to Jefferson, and he sometimes is turnover prone. Now, one of the reasons they won, they only had 3 turnovers against Houston's defense. So they did an unbelievable job of controlling the basketball. If you don't turn it over, you're not giving the other team chances. And I think Houston only had 1 turnover at halftime, but it ended with 7. So it was an elite basketball game. There were not mistakes. There were not runouts. It wasn't easy baskets, and that's why the game was so close. And then towards the end, and you said you didn't watch it, but Jefferson passed it to Heisey. I think there was like a minute 20 left. There was 1 second left on the shot clock, and it was like hot potato. Jefferson from the top of the key to Heisey in the corner. It was just catch and shoot, and then nothing but net.
I did see that.
Yeah, and I'm sure that was one of the highlights. I mean, he didn't have the ball for more than half a second. I mean, it wasn't like catch, pump fake, shot. It was catch and fire and nothing but net. And I think that took the lead or tied it. I forget what it was. It might have been to take a 1-point lead. I think Houston went down, scored again, and then Bateman hit another one, the freshman. And I want to say this. When Bateman hit that shot in the other corner, Milan was sitting at the scorer's table, who's our leading scorer, shooting the best shooting, and the best shooter in the country right now in college basketball, was waiting to come in. When Bateman hit that shot, Milan went and said, "Coach, you got to let him go," because he was playing great defense too. Bateman's a very underrated defensive player. And that is great maturity. It's knowing, hey, he's on fire. And Milan hadn't had a great game. He was fine. I think he led Iowa State in scoring still with 12 or 13 points. No one scored very many. There's a lot of people with 10 or 11. But that's the one critique I have with Iowa State is they don't have the guy to just go make a play besides Jefferson. And he's just sometimes a little iffy because he's not a point guard or guard. He's your point forward. And then our point guard, who is a stud, an All-American candidate, Lipsey, because Iowa State sucks at free throws. Buchanan, they started essentially almost fouling him on purpose because you knew he was going to miss. But Lipsey himself went 1 for 4 down the stretch. Buchanan, I think, went 0 for 3, but Lipsey got 2 offensive rebounds off of that. And Lipsey made the play on Jefferson, he made 1 to get the 3-point lead, missed the other one that would have given Houston a chance with with 4 seconds left. a 3-point ball game, maybe call a timeout, maybe set up a play. Lipsy got the offensive rebound, tipped it to Jefferson. He got fouled again. But Lipsy's play, and they call him Taman plays, but what he does that doesn't show up on the stat sheet is what can push this team over the top. And the team, you remember this, I remember this, but Bo Schembechler was always the team, at Michigan football. And Iowa State is that. They are the best team in college basketball. They don't have the best players. They are the best team. There are teams that are better than Iowa State. It's because they have better players. Nobody from Iowa State's going to get drafted in the top 10. Probably not even the top 20. And Jefferson, we're talking late first round for Jefferson and maybe Milan. But the 5 guys they put on the floor, and then the other thing, they're playing 8 guys, which is 1 guy deeper than they've been the last few years. And then knock on wood, whatever, the injury bugs stayed away so far. And as long as that continues to happen, we're going to talk about injuries in the Big 12 here coming up. I don't know if you saw what all happened today injury-wise in the Big 12, but it's changed the outlook of the Big 12.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw one. I wanted to ask you, though, as far as regular season goes, regular season only,
okay,
is that the best 2-game stretch for Iowa State in men's basketball history?
It's got to be. Iowa State was number 4 and number 6 themselves in the 2 games, or 5 and 6. I think they were 5 and 6 in the AP. I think they were 4 in the coaches. So I think 5 and 6 in the AP, and then Kansas was 9, and then Houston was 2. So we're talking the 2 games combined, top 20, rankings. So I would say yes, and then obviously winning both was huge. So and the atmosphere was better Monday night compared to Saturday afternoon. Now some of that has to do with the outcome of the game. The game was close till the game was in doubt till the end. In fact, they were down 7 with like 6 minutes left, or 10 with 6 minutes left, and they had never came back from 10 down to beat a ranked team in Hilton, which is crazy to me in the second half, which was a crazy stat to me because they came back a lot, but it's not against the elite teams. But I guess Monday night just was absolute craziness from the start to the finish. Chris Williams, who does Cyclone Fanatic, I know you've watched some of his stuff, said he could not hear the PA announcer announce the starting lineups. That's how loud it was. And then the other thing, and I know you say you didn't watch it, but after the game, it goes to Scott Van Pelt and his Sports Center, which is, I love Scott Van Pelt, and he brings in Stanford Steve, and they talk about things, and I just like the way that show goes compared to regular Sports Center. It was a 25-minute infomercial for Hilton Coliseum and Iowa State basketball. Interviewed Otzelberger. They had Heisey on right after the game with the sideline reporter because he hit the shot to take the lead. And then the craziness, they were talking about him. His sister scored another goal for USA Hockey in the Olympics. So, great weeks for the family, for the Heisey family. And then Van Pelt goes back and talks to Fran Fischilla and Boog Shambi for another 10 minutes. And then him and Stanford Steve talk about Hilton Coliseum and Iowa State basketball. So you got a 3-hour infomercial for Iowa State basketball. And that matters because Iowa State's never going to be able to offer the most money for recruits. But they are showing that they can compete with everybody. Like a kid like Fleming will never sign with Iowa State. We're not going to give him enough money. But the kids that are just that one step below, or that transfer that was a stud at Valparaiso, just use that for example. Look at Heisey. He was really good for UNI. Hey, go do that for Iowa State. Jefferson was really good at St. Mary's. Go take that step up. Buchanan was at Virginia. Now, Lipsy's your 4-year guy. Milan's your 4-year guy. So you got to have your recruits. And those guys were both good recruits, but they weren't top 50 recruits. But just what I want Cyclone fans to appreciate what is happening, because now here's the other thing. And I wish you would have been able to watch the game, and I understand everybody has their things to do, but the difference in the game Monday night versus last night, it was big boy basketball on Monday. And then the Nebraska-Iowa game was just that little step behind. The two teams on Monday could win the whole thing if things go their way. The teams on Tuesday, they're not going to win the whole thing. That's the difference. And it's just, I hope other people saw it that way. And that's not me being, it is me being a huge Cyclone fan, but it's me watching basketball and just seeing the difference in players. And then, and I put a Cyclone Twitter poll as well, so take a look at that one. And Iowa State, we've been to the Sweet 16 like 5 times since 2000 with like 5 different coaches too. I mean, it's not even just one coach has done it. This is the time. This is the season that we need to get farther. I really think you're not going to be disappointed if you don't get to the Final Four. I don't think you can be if you get to the Elite Eight, but it's still going to be darn it unless you get to the Final Four. Final Four, great. And then obviously you want to get to that championship game.
Yeah, this has the feelings kind of not to the same. It's not apples to apples, but obviously when Iowa had Caitlin Clark,
yes,
you had to get to the Final Four. Otherwise, it would have felt like a disappointment. Obviously, they made back-to-back championships, but in men's, it's a little bit different. So yeah, no, I agree with you. Sweet 16 is not gonna please the fans. Elite Eight will be better, obviously.
Elite Eight is good. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. It's not great for Iowa State this year. Yep. I think last year the Elite Eight would have been good. They were just a little step, and then the injuries happened where last year Sweet 16 would have been really good for them with their injury situation at the end of the year. But this year, as long as everyone is healthy going throughout, it's got to be Elite Eight at least.
No, I agree with that. And then just looking at their schedule, they've obviously got at BYU and at Utah. Do you think they're going to stay in Utah the whole time? Or are they going to fly back?
I would sure think they're going to stay out there. And then just so I want to do this first. So we talked about Iowa and their seed. Iowa State, looking at their schedule, I think it's very difficult to get to a 1. Now they have the opportunity. If they don't lose another game, they will be the number 1 seed because I think they will win the Big 12 conference or at least tie for it. And then obviously they will win the Big 12 championship tournament. So I think it'd be really hard for a team that shares the championship and wins the Big 12 tournament championship to not be a 1 seed this year. I think it'd be really hard. But I don't think that's going to happen. They have too many tough games coming up. They're going to lose 1 or more. In fact, I would be shocked if they lost less than 2. I think they'll lose 1 more in the regular season, and I don't think they'll win the tournament championship. So there's 2 guaranteed, I think. Now, which ones they lose matter. But I think Iowa State is a 2 seed. I think they're a 2 seed today. I think they're a 2 seed tournament time. Do you agree with that, Trev?
Yeah, I mean, last I looked, I saw that they were still a 2 seed as of right now, even with those back-to-back really good wins. But they do have an opportunity to get to a 1. Obviously, they've got 3 tough games on the road. Texas Tech is a little bit easier with the injury there that they suffered. But at Arizona, March 2nd, if they can win that one, I mean, and then do well in the Big 12 tournament, they can definitely move themselves up to a 1 seed. Yeah,
I just said it. They have the opportunity. If they don't lose another game, they will be a 1 seed. I truly believe that. Let's talk kind of with that. They go to BYU Saturday night at 9:30 Central Time, so really late night in Provo. Richie Saunders tore his ACL for BYU, and JT Toppin, returning Big 12 Player of the Year, was definitely in the running to do it again. Texas Tech has 3 of the best wins in the country, Yes, they have 6 losses, I believe, but they could make serious noise coming up. But with that news, he tore his ACL as well. Their chances went down the tubes, and I think as well as BYU. The Big 12 had 5 teams that could make the Final Four. They are down to 3 now with 2 injuries.
Yeah, and that's not just good for Iowa State, it's good for the rest of the country too. And like you said, last year Iowa State had some injuries in any sport too, football, whatever it is.
Yep.
You have to get that injury luck, as we call it, whatever you want to say, on your side, and then you go make a run in the tournament, because it happens in every sport. There's teams that start out hot, look like they can go win the whole thing, and then as the season starts to come to a close, they suffer injuries. I mean, it's the unfortunate part of sports, but as you mentioned, it's going to open up things for Houston, Iowa State, and Arizona, as well as the other top teams in the country.
Yeah, and the other team that has a chance, and I don't think they will, because I don't know what's going on with Peterson, but if Peterson plays an entire game and plays like he can, Kansas can be there too. So there's really still 4 teams, but there was probably 5. I don't think BYU was ever quite good enough. Texas Tech was good enough. So BYU was kind of like the Purdue and Nebraska. They're just that little step down. Now they're another step down, probably almost closer to an Iowa, except for the fact that they have A.J. DeBansa, who's the real deal, will be like the number 2 pick in the draft. So they have the guy that can go and just get whatever they need. So Saturday night is a little bit easier now, but still is difficult. It's on the road in the Marriott Center. There's 20,000 crazy people there. Iowa State's won there before, lost there before, and it's always a dogfight out there. BYU is kind of a little bit of their kryptonite, especially last year. I mean, BYU made Iowa State look stupid twice, the way they move the ball and everything. But without Richie Saunders, and then with A.J. DeBansa, the way he plays, he wants the ball and he goes and makes the plays, that feeds into Iowa State's hands a little bit better. So I do think Saturday night is easier. Now, could they go out there and still lose? Absolutely. But I do think you have to be a little bit more optimistic on their defensive system / being a little more effective than it would have been pre-Saunders injury. And then I think the next Saturday, Texas Tech comes to Iowa State, and obviously that trajectory of that game has fallen immensely without JT Toppin. They lost to Kansas State on Baylor. Kansas State beat Baylor. Arizona State beat Texas Tech, who was obviously at the bottom of the conference. The 2 bottom teams of the conference won games this week. But devastating news for Texas Tech, because you hate to see great players get hurt and not able to live up to their potential, or have teams not live up to their potential just because of injuries.
Yeah, it's definitely the worst part of sports, like we've talked about, even in football and other ones, of course. And yeah, Saturday night at BYU is going to be tough. The Mormons are going to be all hopped up on Diet Coke. So it's going to be a loud environment, even though the game's a little bit easier now. You wonder if Iowa State, hopefully not, but could they have a little bit of a mental letdown after 2 massive wins at home, then going on the road? Hearing the injury news, can they keep their focus? Obviously,
I do like that it's all the way from Monday to Saturday. It's not like a 2-day turnaround. And the other thing that I did really like about what Iowa State had to do Saturday against Kansas, and then Monday turnaround, 1-day prep against Houston, that simulates, those 2 games are like a Sweet 16 game and then like an Elite 8 game to get to the Final Four. So whatever they did, prep-wise, rest-wise in between, they need to remember that, put that in the memory bank, or, and say, hey, if we get to that weekend, you can't look ahead, but if you get to that weekend, this is a blueprint of maybe what to try to do. Now, obviously, you're at home in your own facilities, able to do it, but whether you're in Chicago or Houston, I think those are the 2 places I think you've earned the right to get to. Those are the 2 closest Sweet 16 arenas, but that is a very good simulation of what that will be like and the teams it'll be like.
Yeah, that's a great point that you made. Obviously, Saturday and Monday, that simulates tournament time. And then, as you mentioned, playing two great teams, because if you do make it to the Sweet 16, no matter who you're playing in the Elite Eight, you're going to be playing the best of the best. So that's a really good point. Whatever they did for practice and rehab and meals and all that type of stuff, I'm sure the coaches wrote it down, and they'll try to emulate that, even though they'll be on the road. But everything else, you can kind of do the same, hopefully.
Absolutely. I mean, it's you just need to do that same thing, and not that you would play against those same teams, but yes, Houston could definitely be the 1 seed and you're the 2, and then Kansas could definitely be a 3 seed and you're the 2. I mean, that those are the exact type of teams. In fact, I think Houston and Iowa State probably both right now are 2 seeds, but if Houston beats Arizona on Saturday, because they play, they'll probably jump up to the 1 seed. I mean, it's just the way it is. I mean, but yeah, that's what I thought when I was watching that schedule and the way it worked out. That is what it's going to be like, and you have to recreate it. No,
it's a really good point, and it's going to be fun watching the final 4 or 5 games that the men and the women all have, and then getting into tournament time, because as we've talked about throughout this year, Iowa State men and women, Iowa men and women all have a chance, really good chance, obviously, to make the tournament. And then Iowa State getting one of the top seeds, Iowa women looking like a 3 seed right now. We can talk about them briefly before we get off here, but it's kind of fun for both the men's and women's side for both schools.
Yeah, actually, I need to look. Addie Brown came back tonight for Iowa State women. I need to look. You talk about the Iowa women just for a minute. I'm going to look up to see if they won or not tonight. I didn't even look.
I forgot to look before we got on. I know they were leading, but yeah, speaking of the Iowa women, they had lost 2 in a row. Played rival Nebraska, dominated them, which was great to see. They play tomorrow night at Purdue, I think 6 o'clock Iowa time. And then they have the big matchup Sunday versus number 6 Michigan at Carver Hawkeyes. So they've got 4 games left. It'd really be nice, obviously, if they could go 4-0 down the stretch, that'd be perfect. But if they can go 3-1, that'd be really good. And, right now Iowa is listed about as a 3 seed, which will get them 2 home tournament games. And just one little stat, Chit Chat Wright is shooting 48.3% from 3. She leads the nation in 3-point percentage from 3. So she's been a godsend getting her to come from Georgia Tech, because Iowa would be in a little bit of trouble without her.
Yeah, and she's only a sophomore, so this isn't like a 1-year transfer. She's you can never say never. I mean, every team and every player is a 1-year free agent this year. That's just the reality of college sports today. But looking forward, I would assume she'd be back as of today, and so that's a really good foundation. I know they got another good 5-star player coming in, and Addie Deal is just going to keep getting better, and the future does look bright for Iowa basketball. They played really well the other day against Nebraska. Watched some of that. We didn't have kids that day. We had a work day. We were able to watch that. So I did pull up Iowa State. They played Arizona State, and they're having one of their best seasons ever. New coach, Molly Miller. 90-64 Iowa State wins. So blowout city for the Cyclones. They've had their bad times. They lost 5 in a row right after Addie Brown got hurt, but they are 21-6. That's really not bad. I mean, I'm just looking at that right now. Addie Brown had 6 points, which is fine for your first game back. 7 rebounds, 6 assists. Not bad for your first game back. It's a pretty good stat line, I think. And she played 19 minutes. So I think that's about right. You don't want to push it, especially in a blowout like that. She's super important, and I hope the committee takes into a factor, like if they would win these next few games. I don't know their schedule off the top of my head, and they could maybe get to a Big 12 championship in the tournament championship game or something. And, with Addie Brown only have like 2 or 3 losses on the year. I hope they take into account those 5 losses without Addie Brown and maybe give them a seed or 2 up. I think it's a stretch to get a 4 seed still for them, but if they could, maybe only have 1 more loss the rest of the year and maybe just lost in the championship game, there might be an argument to be had to have a 4 seed to get those home games.
Right now they're listed as a 9 seed, and we
Yeah,
talked
so-
about before they're going to move up. So really, if you kind of think about it, Iowa State women and Iowa men are kind of both in the same boat,
Yep.
like that 8-9 range, and then sort of close, but Iowa State men are a 2 and Iowa women are a 3. So they
Right.
kind of near each other a little. Obviously, Iowa State can win the Natty. Iowa women can't. I think Sweet 16 is kind of their limit this year since they're so young. But yeah, we've talked about it before. If Iowa State gets healthy, I think they're going to be a little bit of a sleeper team in the women's bracket. For those of us, obviously those of us in the state of Iowa or from there that pay attention to both those schools, we know that. But a lot of other people around the country, when they're filling out their brackets or making bets or whatever, they may not be quite paying attention to Iowa State.
Yeah, and again, if you could jump to that 7, get off that 8-9 game. You don't want to play that game. You don't want to play UConn in the second round. Get to that 7 or even game, or even jump to a 6. That'd be ideal, and then you play that 3-6 game that is closer. I think they have a chance, especially if Addie Brown's back, and she gets healthier and healthier. Obviously, you're not going to push it. She's too valuable, and she's got a long career ahead of her. She's the one player on Iowa State's team that I think can play in the WNBA because she is 6'2"-ish guard player. She can post up if needed. She can handle the ball. She does it well. Just look at her stat line. Hasn't played in a month and a half, and 7 rebounds and 6 assists. That's pretty good from your first one out in a month and a half.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do think Iowa State's going to get on a little bit of a roll here, finish the season strong, do well in the Big 12 tournament, and I do believe they'll get up to a 6 or a 7 seed. We'll see if they can get higher than that, but I do think that they're going to get off that 8-9 spot that they're slated right now.
Yeah. So, all right, Trev, thanks a lot. Anything else you want to talk about? It's been a couple of weeks here for you, but
I think that's probably good. Next week, we still won't have much as far as the combine goes, but over the next month, we'll talk some NFL, like you mentioned in the beginning. We'll do 10 or 15, 20 minutes, whatever there is for NFL each week.
Yep.
Maybe some college football stuff, but obviously from now until after March Madness, it's going to be a lot of college basketball.
Yeah, and this is, especially with Iowa State really having a chance this year. I mean, yes, I'm an Iowa State fan, so an Iowa State homer, but real life, Iowa State has a chance. And you can't say that every year with teams in the state. Iowa women a few years ago, Caitlin Clark had a chance, and you knew that. And it was really fun, and that's why she dominated everything, because she scored 40 a game, and they had a chance. And they made it, and they were within one game both years. But if Iowa State plays well and played like they did this weekend, every game from here on out, they can beat every team in the country. There is not a team that they cannot beat.
Nope, definitely. It should be a fun end to the regular season. We'll get into tournament talk, and in March Madness should be a blast. Like I said, with all the teams in Iowa and Iowa State going to be in, and hopefully have a chance to win some games.
Oh, absolutely. All right. Thanks a lot, Trev. We'll talk to you next week. We'll probably talk to you before that off, but we'll talk next week here on the podcast.
All righty. Have a good one.
Yep.